Cam Newton's available right now, and a lot of people say that Cam Newton should sit out this season and collect the money that is owed to him, or because there's no team right now out there that is a Super Bowl contender that is looking for a quarterback. But you just mentioned the Chargers, who just added Justin Herbert, who might not be ready to be an NFL quarterback. Why can't the Chargers reach out to Cam Newton and say, you know what, we'll sign you 2 years, we'll bring you in, and you help us try to win a Super Bowl?
So there's a report that came out today that was saying how Cam actually might now be willing to look at taking a backup job. But even then, I would think he would want to go somewhere like the deal Marcus Mariota got with the Raiders, where you're making a decent chunk of change and you kind of know that, hey, if this starter doesn't get things going, doesn't get things turned around, you could have the chance to go in. When you go to back up a rookie quarterback that just got drafted in the top 10 picks, I mean, you just got to be realistic about what that entails. I mean, out of all the QBs drafted in the top 10 picks since 2010, only 3 of them have started less than 10 games as a rookie. I mean, I know we point to Patrick Mahomes and how successful that was, but other than him, it's only been Jared Goff and Jake Locker are these top 10 picks that haven't gotten on the field for at least 10 starts at the start of the season. So, yeah, I mean, would the fit be cool there? I would love it. I would love Cam in New England as well. I would love Cam with the Las Vegas Raiders. But it just doesn't seem likely. And unfortunately, teams just have kind of given him the cold shoulder for now. I think a lot of it is just because, again, as we kind of talked about earlier, you can't do your usual physical checks. You can't have your doctors fly across the country to do it. And, when it's a spot where you got to kind of wonder what's the role for this guy, I just think it's been a little more, quote-unquote, trouble these teams want to put forward.
And you were speaking about New England, and New England might be looking for a quarterback. Cam Newton's available right now. My argument here, and you have Fitzpatrick too, who could be available too, that could fit New England's type of offense. Do you think Cam Newton would really fit over there in New England with Bill Belichick?
Look at the Patriots. Remember when Brady got suspended 4 games for
Right.
Goodell disagreeing with science? And we saw Garoppolo come out first 2 games, kill it, gets hurt. They're home underdogs against the Texans. We didn't know who Jacoby Brissett was at this point. They asked Jacoby to throw the ball like 10 times. It was this wild run-heavy game plan that completely caught Houston off guard. I mean, Bill Belichick's like staple as a coach is he'll change his entire team's philosophy from one week to the next just to counter what an opponent does wrong. I mean, it's crazy thinking, you should try to exploit what your opponent doesn't do well. And Cam Newton, whatever you want to complain about the guy, which is that he had a foot injury that wouldn't let him play this year. In the second half of the 2018 season, his shoulder was so bad, they had to pull him for Hail Mary so someone could actually get the ball down there. This guy just hasn't been healthy for over a year and a half. And before that, I mean, look at the 2015 Super Bowl team where you're throwing to Jericho Cotchery and Ted Ginn and, Philly Brown, guys that couldn't even catch on as complimentary receivers elsewhere. It's honestly amazing Cam accomplished what he did in his time at Carolina, and people wonder if he can fit into his system. Cam Newton is his system. He's one of the best rushing quarterbacks ever. We've got minimal experience of him with actual receivers in a legitimate passing game. He was setting career-high marks, completion rate, and things like that under North Turner that first half of the 2018 season. Just hasn't been healthy. So maybe if what it takes for Cam is to get a starting job again, is to go join an organization, really buy in and, get inside the walls for a year before he can take over. If that's what he has to do, then, so be it. But it's a shame because I don't think anyone can debate that Cam is a top 32 quarterback on the planet right now.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think are the biggest reasons that maybe he hasn't been signed yet? Do you think it's maybe just not a lot of spots open? Do you think that it's the injury? Do you think it's money? Maybe he wants to get paid like a starter. What do you think are the biggest factors to contribute to why he's not signed?
I think the big thing is just the unknown with the injuries. We haven't seen the guy be healthy. And, when someone is, I don't want to call him overly reliant, but when such a large part of his productivity is tied to his legs, we got to know how this foot injury was healing. So if there's been holdups and kind of getting that medical information, that would make the most sense to me. And also, I think teams are just, we see this with some of these quarterbacks. If they don't initially go off the board, early free agency, teams are going to wait for the draft to go through, reassess, see what the roster looks like now, move forward. Maybe he catches on soon. If not, we could maybe see him wait until August for an injury to happen to hop on late. But it's an unknown right now, and I wish we had more answers.
Ian, are you surprised that Andy Dalton signed with the Cowboys and they didn't give Dak Prescott the contract that he wanted? Or do you think this might be the end of Dak Prescott after this?
No, this is not a quarterback competition. I think it's one of the more hilarious storylines going around this week. Dak Prescott is the Cowboys quarterback. The Cowboys last season became one of 11 teams in the last 50 years to average at least 6.5 yards per play. I mean, they weren't the Baltimore Ravens, but, you know, they were pretty dang good out there, and everything's looking like they could be even better on paper for next season. So Dak's been nothing short of remarkable. I know the wins and losses haven't quite been there yet, but, you know, wins and losses aren't really the best quarterback stat to completely hang your hat on. You need more than one stat to tell the story in just about any wake of life. So we'll see what the Cowboys are doing here at Dak. But the big thing with Dalton is that he lives in Texas, so he gets to stay with his family through this whole pandemic, making money from the Cowboys, from the comfort of being there. And look, it's kind of like the Nick Foles deal that he got in Philly after winning the Super Bowl, where if Dalton doesn't have to play all season, doesn't take a single snap, he's only going to make $3 million. But if Dak goes down, Dalton has to resume life as a starting quarterback. He's getting his incentives and making more money. So backup quarterback job, I know we were talking smack about Jordan Love earlier, but the idea with that is like this is a developmental quarterback. Even if something happened to Rodgers, I don't think Green Bay would necessarily be expecting to compete right now with Jordan Love. But the Dalton deal, I mean, go ahead, get you a good backup quarterback, because they sure as heck weren't going to be competing with Cooper Rush before if Dak would have gone down. It kind of, same thing with Philly. I was pretty harsh on the Jalen Hurts draft pick in the second round at first, but looking back on it, it's a pretty cheap way, all things considered, with what these backup quarterbacks are making these days. It's a pretty cheap way to get a talented guy behind your franchise quarterback and give you a chance if your guy goes down to mess with the rest of the team and hopefully move forward.
As we mentioned earlier, we had John Daigle on Monday, and he was talking about a positionless NFL, and you brought up Jalen Hurts. A lot of people comparing him now to Taysom Hill. We were talking about Isaiah Simmons earlier. Do you think that path could definitely be in the makings for a lot of these now versatile players that we're seeing both on offense and on defense?
I think we're seeing positionless football to an extent. I'm not sure if we'll ever quite see it all the way with multiple quarterback type players on the field. But, you look at the Rams, you're seeing Robert Woods get 15 to 20 rush attempts per season. Tyreek Hill's lining up in the backfield sometimes, just more and more. If you can get a player to go on the field and, be a wide receiver running back type where you're a good enough receiver that the defense has to match him with a corner because they know if they try to cover him with a safety or linebacker, then you're already winning. Because if that guy can now run between the tackles, you got a lighter box than you would have had otherwise to go up against. So it's just more and more try to manipulate matchups, get your playmakers in space. And, especially in like San Francisco, I mean, they just can't stop adding these guys that are great with the ball in their hands after the catch. So, yeah, it's definitely moving more towards positionless football. I have my doubts on if we're going to see anyone else really have this true Taysom Hill-esque role. It's a little bit overstated, particularly just from the quarterback side of things. I mean, Taysom Hill last season never spent more than 5 snaps in a single game as a quarterback. So I think when we see them out there, it's more in like this running back, wide receiver hybrid. We just really haven't seen much extended auditions, of that wildcat QB that can also catch and run the ball around. It looks fun, and when it does work, we see the highlights of it. But I think in general, it's still a little bit more of just a stick than a lasting impact.
I know a lot of people have spoken very highly of the Buffalo Bills. You look at what they did in the offseason. They added Josh Norman. They added now a star wide receiver. At least that's what they think they have. And this team has a young quarterback like Josh Allen, who played very, very well early in the first round in the playoffs, and then kind of fell off and lost in overtime. Where do you see this team this year, especially with the additions that they've added this offseason?
So before the draft, I went through all these rosters, and the two teams that really stuck out to me as just they didn't have many pressing needs to fill entering the draft were the Bills and the Steelers. And, just the Bills in particular, like, yes, Josh Allen, he's the type of guy that with your playoff game on the line is going to throw the ball, lateral it to a teammate that may or may not be there in the middle of the field. So he's a risk taker. He does a lot of crazy things, but he brings a lot of good to the table. And as mediocre as a lot of his passing stats still were last season, they were a really big step up from his rookie year. And look, he's never had the complete best supporting cast, but we saw it really improve last season. Now we're getting year 2 with this revamped offensive line. And you're adding Stephon Diggs, who was literally the league's premier field stretcher last season. So if Josh Allen is going to be the answer, they're doing everything right to surround him with talent to help him get there. I'm not super convinced yet. He's very fun to watch play, whether you think he's going to be a longtime franchise quarterback or not, but we'll see how much he can put it together. But if the offense can just even be above average and kind of have the ceiling to maybe go on a little run, they're going to be fine because this defense is ready to go. I mean, they're kind of overtaking the Vikings at this point as just the defense that only loses one or two starters per year. They kind of reload at those spots anyway, and they're just really difficult to deal with every year, and they have a nice little home field advantage going for them in Buffalo. So I was looking at some defensive MVP odds, and I mean, Tre'Davious White was sitting there around 3,500, like outside the top 15 players. And, we just saw what happened in New England with Stephon Gilmore winning it. And, I know quarterbacks usually don't win it. It's normally a pass rusher that can really get the numbers. But truly, like just Tre'Davious White, he is that good of a player. And, when you're consistently locking up number one wide receivers week after week, you can get that shine. So, yeah, I'm all in on the Bills. I think they deserve to be the AFC East favorites. Whether Josh Allen can go out there and, is this going to be is this going to be a Jaguar situation where we already saw the best of, a good defense and kind of an erratic quarterback put it together for 1 year? Or is this going to be a better sign of things to come? I'm hoping the latter is true, but I guess we'll find out.
What quarterback really stands out to you out of all these young quarterbacks that we've seen in the last couple of years?
I think Wentz is going to really put it together.
Really?
He's going to be the guy for a long time. And we've seen him reach that level before. In 2017, he was amazing. He was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt at the end of the season. And we haven't quite seen him put that together for an extended stretch again over the last 2 years, but it really hasn't been his fault. And, I know we can kind of pick and choose through a lot of these teams and go through injuries and this and that, and every team has to deal with it. But really, you look at the 2017 Eagles, and what made them so good on offense was, you had Alshon Jeffrey and a really good version of Nelson Aguilar working those intermediate areas of the field. But they had Torrey Smith and Mac Hollins, a good version of him as a rookie, who, aren't the best field stretchers in the world, but they're at least enough to make a safety look over there and say, okay, I got to make sure I can get over there if need be. And that just helped open up the entire offense because, look at Ertz, Goddard, these running backs, they need to operate in those intermediate areas of the field. And if you don't have someone that can take the top off the defense, problem's going to happen. 2018 comes around. Holland on IR the whole season. They tried to sign Mike Wallace to replace Torrey Smith. Most people probably never knew he was an Eagle because the guy never played a game all season. 2019 comes around. They said, okay, let's get us to Deshaun Jackson again. Guy goes absolutely nuts in week one, gets hurt, misses the rest of the season. I mean, Carson Wentz literally hasn't been able to play with like a prime field stretcher since 2017. Now he's got D-Jax, hopefully healthy. They traded for Marquise Goodwin. They got Jalen Reagor in the first round, who, just based on some of his QB's deficiencies in college, could be a big steal. Then they just went ahead and drafted three more wide receivers that were all clocking the 4.3 or 4.4 range. So finally, a team we were seeing try to get this big performance out of things called Joshua Perkins and Boston Scott at the end of the season. They finally got just some young, fresh, fast talent out there. And I think we're going to see Wentz and potentially the best offense of his career really shine.
What team do you think had the most underrated draft and most overrated draft?
I think most overrated is potentially the Broncos, just because, again, I like the picks they made. I really do. They're flashy, Hamler, Judy. I think they'll be good players, but we're just kind of freaking out a little bit over these skill position guys that, again, we've never seen on the field. And particularly just for 2020 alone, it's going to be hard to expect these guys to make, just huge differences right away. I like what they're doing surrounding Drew Lock with it and everything, but I just think maybe, we're expecting a little too much in Denver out of these guys that haven't played a snap yet. Are they a top 16 draft? Sure. But are they a top 3 to 5 draft that some people have been putting them in? I'm not quite so sure. And then on the other side of things, look, the Carolina Panthers, I don't think any one pick was just incredible, but they had by far the league's worst defense entering the draft, and I think they still do. But hey, at least they realized that and spent every single pick on the defensive side of the ball. So, if you know you have a weakness, go out there and try to fill it. There's something to be said about trying to make a strength, but I mean, my goodness, just the way their depth chart was looking after losing some of their guys to free agency, they need just to get some young talent on that side of the ball, and it looks like they did.